Currently, a basic component of the transformation to environmentally friendly transportation is stations for charging electric vehicles. In any case, worries over some EV charging stations operating in ways that profit consumers are growing even with their increasing frequency. These stations might generate major challenges for owners of electric cars due to their inadequate basis and misleading valuation systems. Resolving these problems and guaranteeing a simpler and more dependable charging network call for an understanding of why EV charging stations are sometimes considered as extortionist. Let's go over these issues one by one. Deceptive pricing practices. One of the main worries about EV charging stations is the lack of clear data. Sometimes the cost per kilowatt hour or the whole cost of a charging conference may not reflect as expected on charging stations. Evaluating could differ in agreement on elements including the season of day, charging speed, and network supplier. Clients could not be aware of this entire cost until after they've charged their car, which could result in unexpectedly large bills. Since EV charging fees are routinely covered in their oscilloscopic print, are merely accessible through apps rather than service station cost, which are prominently displayed, it's challenging for consumers to make informed decisions. Inconsistent charging speeds. Another problem that annoys EV owners is the contradicting charging rates among several stations. Although some stations promise to be able to charge quickly, by and by they charge definitely more slowly. There are several possible reasons for this uniqueness. For example, an outdated foundation, a limited power supply, or major areas of strength that either match or exceed the capacity of the station. For drivers who depend on quick charging to get around, these discrepancies could cause major obstacles and inconvenience. The commitment of quick re-energizes breaks at the moment the actual execution falls short of the guaranteed capacities. Poor maintenance and reliability. The longevity of EV charging stations is another important problem. Typical problems with charging stations are bad maintenance, which result in constant faults and personal time lost. Among the most constant concerns of EV customers are programming problems, bad connectors, and broken chargers. Should there be no other nearby charging stations, vehicles may find themselves abandoned upon arriving at one, and their route may be disputed. The rare maintenance and postponed repairs damage the charging networks as well as erode public faith in the EV. Limited coverage and accessibility. Indeed, there are still gaps in inclusion even with the quick development of EV charging networks, especially in rural or sparsely inhabited areas. Restricted access to reliable charging stations could discourage potential EV consumers who clearly question the viability of buying an electric vehicle. Furthermore, some charging stations are set in odd or difficult-to-arrive locations, including the remote compasses of parking spaces or where affirmation prices are extra. These openness difficulties can make charging a depressing and tiresome cycle for those who lack simple access to home charging options. Hidden fees and membership requirements. Clients of several EV charging networks should become individuals or pay memberships to reach their stations. Pay more only when costs develop. Unique companies have accessible solutions, but their per kilowatt expenses or additional help charges sometimes are larger. Implicit fees for inactive time could also surprise clients, since they force them to use the charger once their car reaches full capacity. These techniques can perhaps extend the cost of charging past specific gauges and convolute the usually confused cosmos of EV charging. Now let's go deep into the challenges and not only talk about the problems, but also examine the possible remedies to these problems. The experience of visiting a gas station is more predictable, yet the average gas station is neither a destination nor the pinnacle of design quality. The shape of petrol stations and the spaces surrounding them has evolved over decades, and some are rather good. In any case, it appears that electric vehicles are the way of the future. We will increasingly use these areas for charging our automobiles in our daily lives. There are already over 3 million EVs on the road, and there are over 130,000 public chargers in the United States, with the number increasing at a pace of 60% each year. The question remains, do these areas have to be disgusting? First, EV charging stations use three sorts of technology: Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3. Levels 2 and 3 are most likely the ones being discussed here. Level 1 charges an electric vehicle with a conventional 120-volt outlet, which can take up to a day. Level 2 requires a 240-volt outlet and can charge an electric vehicle in 4 to 8 hours. Level 3, commonly known as DC fast charging, employs a high-voltage DC connection to charge a vehicle in 30 minutes or less. As a result, Level 3s are the types of destinations you would visit on a lengthy road trip or when out and about to keep things interesting. Because of the higher power requirements, they require a larger footprint and more complicated infrastructure. Nonetheless, despite their more robust needs, they are not as spatially dense as, say, a gas station. While EV charging sometimes resembles a parking lot, centralization allows you to establish a single umbrella to shield clients who are often waiting outside adjacent to their cars or for the attendant to move around them. They also have a higher turnover rate, which means they can service more customers while allowing automobiles to move by. While classic gas stations appear fairly normal to us today, they've evolved over time. When you have a known type, a remarkable study of gas station types was done using painting and photography, which helps cement their place in the public imagination. Architects like experimenting with the elements that comprise that type of structure. For example, how could a canopy be designed differently, or what if the building and canopy were the same? There isn't a specific building type for EV charging yet, and because of its dispersed organizational structure rather than the compactness of a regular gas station, it's likely to provide the same amount of consistent elements. After all, nearly every component of the EV experience is distinct. For example, your GPS takes you to the station. You're not simply looking for a sign. On the highway, even paying isn't a cash transaction requiring an attendant. It's usually handled in an app, so pairing them with convenience stores isn't such a natural fit in these ways. The EV station is a new problem to solve with unique opportunities, but just because it doesn't require the same common and collective design strategies doesn't mean that it can't contribute positively to the built environment. The design, on the other hand, is pretty sterile and clinical, and that's to go with the brand's minimal futuristic aesthetic, since canopies have always been part of gas stations. There are tons of architectural experiments here, from folded steel ones to elegant concrete curves that push the boundaries of structural design and material properties to dynamic shapes, evoking the speed of the road. The promise of EV charging stations lies in making more aesthetically pleasing or even architecturally daring canopies, or at least it doesn't lie primarily there. There's an organization called Electric Architecture Autonomy, which ran a competition for architects to imagine what an EV station of the future might look like. They received 100 entries from around the world, and many of the winners include a canopy that expresses different sensibilities. So, what do you really think of EV charging stations? Do share your views in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed watching the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.